Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at using similar figures to find unknown sides and unknown angles. So remember that if two shapes are similar, pairs of corresponding angles are equal and pairs of corresponding sides are in the same proportion. We'll use this to find unknown angles, this to find unknown sides. So let's start over here. We're finding an unknown angle x. So we have here two triangles. Now they are similar by the SSS test. So this side's double this side's double this side, and this side double this side. So that means because they're similar, pairs of corresponding angles will be equal. So all we have to do to find x is find out which angle in this smaller triangle corresponds to x. So note that x is where the two shorter sides meet. So it corresponds to the side in the smaller shape where the two shorter sides meet. So x corresponds to this angle here. So these two angles will be the same size. Now we can figure out this one easily because they have to add up to 180. So 180 minus 60 minus 40 gives 80. This angle here is 80. This one, because it corresponds to it, must also be 80 degrees, and we're done. So let's look at the two shapes here. So this time I'm just going to tell you that they're similar. So let's have a look at what x would be. So we have to figure out which angle in this shape here corresponds to x. So you can see x is facing one of the right angles. It will be this one here. X is an obtuse angle here. So this angle here, the obtuse angle, corresponds to x. These two angles will be equal because the shapes are similar. So to find this angle here, it's really easy. Remember, angles in a quadrilateral add to 360. 360 minus 90 minus 90 minus 50 gives you 130. And there you go. That's the easy part. Finding angles is pretty easy, but there's a little more work required when we're finding sides, which we will now do. So let's look at these two shapes on your screen. Again, I'm telling you that they are similar. We're going to use this to find unknown side lengths, x and y. So this is what you need to know to be able to find side lengths. So the scale factor, side in larger shape divided by corresponding side in the smaller shape. Once you've got the scale factor, if you're finding a side in the larger shape, times by the scale factor. If you're finding a side in the smaller shape, divide by the scale factor. So to find the scale factor, we need two pairs of corresponding sides. So this one's a little tricky because this shape has been enlarged, but it's also been reflected. It can be a bit tricky to figure out which side corresponds to which, Does y correspond to 30 or 35? So what we do is we look out for some angles that are marked. So see here, 30 is the side that has the blue and red angle marked. So it corresponds to the side here with the blue and red angle marked. So 18 has the same angles as the 30 side, so those two sides correspond. So from that, we can get the scale factor. So the scale factor is 30 over 18, which is 5 over 3 or 1.6 recurring. That is the scale factor. So that means every side in this shape is 5 over 3, or about 1.7 times its corresponding side in the smaller shape. So now we can find x and y. So let's start by finding x. So x is in the larger shape. So we're going to times by the scale factor. So what we're going to do to find x, we're going to find its corresponding side in the smaller shape and times by this scale factor. So see, x is a side that's touching the blue angle only. So it corresponds to this side here that's touching the blue angle only. X and 12 correspond. So x is side in the smaller shape times the scale factor. And if you put that on your calculator, you get 20. So now let's find y. Well, y is actually in the smaller shape. So we need to find its corresponding side and divide by the scale factor. So y is touching the red angle only. not touching the blue angle. So we look for the side here that's touching the red angle but not the blue angle. So y corresponds to the side that's 35. So we take the side that's 35. This time we're dividing by the scale factor because we're finding a side that is in the smaller shape. So if we do that, we actually get 21. So y is 21 and x is equal to 20. So that's why it's important that when we're finding the scale factor, it's always side in larger shape over side in smaller shape. You should always get a number greater than 1. Because if you do it this way, then you can follow this rule down there. All right, let's look at some slightly harder examples. So once again, we will find some unknown sides in these triangles here. Now, this small triangle and this large triangle, they would be similar because of the AAA test. We've got a common angle, one pair, two pairs of corresponding equal angles. So because of that, the sides will be in the same proportion. So like we did on the previous slide, we first need to find the scale factor. So we need a side in the larger triangle and a corresponding side in the smaller triangle. So some people, if they got an example like this, they think the scale factor was 10 over 6. Problem: 6 is not in either of the triangles. See, the side in the larger triangle here is 16. So this side here that's 16 corresponds to this side here that's 10. The scale factor is 16 over 10, or 1.6. So of course that means each side in the larger triangle is 1.6 times the corresponding side in the smaller triangle. So finding y is not too difficult. So this time y is in the larger triangle, so we take its corresponding side of the smaller shape and we times by the scale factor. So you get 19.2. Finding y wasn't too hard. It was just a little tricky finding the scale factor. So now we've got to find x. So what we have, this here, this side here in the longer triangle is x plus 7.5. So the side in the larger triangle is equal to the scale factor times the side in the smaller triangle. So here we have an equation to solve. So hopefully you know by now, variable on both sides, you subtract the one with the lowest coefficient. So subtracting x from both sides, we get 7.5 equals 1.6x minus x is just 0.6x. So now we're going to divide each side by 0.6. So x will just be 7.5 divided by 0.6. And so you can use your calculator for that. You get x is equal to 12.5. So that's sort of the hard way to do it. The easier way to find x, so because these sides here are in proportion and these sides are in proportion, actually these will be in proportion. So this is equal to 1.25 times that, so x will be equal to 1.25 times 10. So this is a harder one. You can do it the easy way that I've just done, but that's harder to understand, or you can do it this way, which is more foolproof, easier to understand, but requires a bit more algebra. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.